There will always be successful, good brokers in bad markets, because when there are bad markets, if people are going to list, they're going to go to the best. So those people will do well regardless.
So the question is this: how do most agents find the secrets to succeed in today's competitive real estate market, especially when the top agents are keeping those secrets to themselves? That's the question, and this podcast will give you the answer. Hi, I'm Aaron Amuchastegui, and welcome to Real Estate Rockstars. Real Estate Rockstars, this is Aaron Amuchastegui with a quick commercial break with one of our newest sponsors. I'm super excited to be partnering with these guys. Does 15 to 20% ROI investing in turnkey rentals sound attractive? Did you know you can use the BRRRR strategy with new construction that has immediate equity already? You guys have heard me talk about stuff like this. Rent to Retirement offers fully turnkey properties that are newly built or renovated, leased and managed, allowing you to invest with confidence out of state. They have single family, multifamily, new build, and syndication opportunities across multiple markets that maximize cash flow, appreciation, and equity. Rent to Retirement assists investors in learning how to build a comprehensive business plan with the best investment and tax strategies to achieve financial freedom through real estate investing. There's no excuse not to get started in real estate investing when you have the right team and systems in place. To learn more, visit renttoretirement.com. That's renttoretirement.com or call 1-800-311-6781. That's 800-311-6781 to learn about how you can get started investing in some of the best cash flow markets today. And if you guys want to learn more about Zach, episode 1025, we dig in for a good 45-minute interview where he tells you the secrets to investing in real estate out of state. And him and I shared a lot of ideas about what works and what doesn't. You'll get to hear a lot about his company and his business. If you're an agent from out of state and you've got referrals looking for stuff, they work with other agents on a referral basis. And we've talked so much since COVID hit that everybody needs to have a backup plan, right? Every one of you agents needs to have a backup plan. You should all be investing in real estate. And if you're having trouble finding the time and the team to do it, maybe something like Rent to Retirement is the solution for you. So thank you for listening. Go check them out. Now back to the rest of our podcast.
All right. We are back here again with Real Estate Rockstars. I'm your special guest host, Stephanie Brackett, who's with you today with the lovely Jessica Peters from Brooklyn, New York. How's it going in Brooklyn today?
It's warm and muggy in Brooklyn, but a beautiful day.
That's funny. I've only been to New York recently, like the past 3 years. I've been 3 years in a row, and I never thought that New York was a humid place. And I got there and I was like, what is this humidity?
It's something that's a little newer. I'd say as of the last 10, 15 years, we've started to kind of drift into more of a tropical, humid environment. I don't know, global warming, something, but it's gotten very humid here over the last 10, 15 years. I certainly don't remember it being like this when I was a kid.
That's awesome. So if anybody's looking for a tropical vacation, they need to add Brooklyn, New York to their
Tropics
list.
of the East Coast.
That's awesome. Awesome. Well, tell me a little bit about your real estate team and just kind of what's going on with your business recently as far as volume, units, all of that fun stuff.
Sure. So there's 9 of us, not including the marketing team. So we also have a marketing team. We have an operations team, and then there's 6 agents, including myself. This has been a stellar year for us thus far. So since January for 2022, we're looking at approximately 150 million in sales volume and approximately 3.4 million in commission. And I'm not even halfway through the year. So very excited about that.
High five. That's awesome. What's your average purchase price running up there?
It's probably somewhere between 1.5 and 2 million if you're doing the average, because we do a ton of volume. And I say to everybody, I treat every transaction the same, whether it's 500,000 or 500 million, we service everybody.
That's awesome. Can you get anything in Brooklyn for 500,000? Does that exist?
Starting to change. Last year, you used to be able to get a 1-bedroom for like $550. Now that's kind of teetered into the studio, but that $500,000 price point is likely going to disappear over the course of the next few years. So very, very interesting to see how the market goes.
That is interesting. Have you guys felt any sort of a shift at all recently? Have you noticed a shifting market?
So the market is still very strong here, but we are finally starting to come to some challenges with what's happening in the stock market and the rising interest rates. So, just this past week, I launched a new building and I had 3 full asking price offers on a condo, no concessions. People were willing to bid over the asking price. And when they went back to solidify their financing, they either found out that their stock portfolios had dropped so drastically that they don't qualify for the same rate, or that their bank will only extend their rate for another 30 to 60 days, which would make it not applicable to our project because we're not going to be closing for about 90 days. So those 3 deals just went poof.
Wow. Wow. And we'll probably see a lot more of that as interest rates continue to creep.
A lot of people are reevaluating. I have another building. Thankfully, it's going to be closing before the interest rates expire. But I had a client lock in their rate so low that if they don't get to take advantage of this late rate lock, the amount of interest would increase by another $700,000 over the course of the loan. And they were just like, we can't do that. And I was like, I totally get it, but don't worry, we're going to close it. So we don't need to talk about that.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. Well, that's interesting. Let's shift into development because you do a lot with developers. So let's talk about that.
Awesome.
What does
let's
that
do
look
it.
like?
So I am predominantly a listing broker. About 84% of my sales over the last year were on the list side. And I'd say 90 to 95% of that was new development.
Wow. Okay. All right.
I've been doing it for a while. I came to Brooklyn in 2008, just as kind of things were shifting in the borough. But at the same time, it's when the market crashed. So I literally had to learn how to do everything from rentals to condos to co-ops. And, I got lucky and tripped and fell into new development. So I've just been doing that for the last, 13 years.
That's awesome. If someone was wanting to get into new development as part of their portfolio of things that they do in real estate, where would you give them advice to start? How would they start that?
So there's a couple of different ways that you could approach that. It just really depends on the type of person you are and what ultimately, you're trying to achieve along the way. So what I did is I worked for a top producing team in Manhattan when I first got out of college, and I worked as an admin. That team specifically specialized in new development. So behind the scenes, I got to see all the ins and outs of how it worked. So when I went from working in the city to working in Brooklyn, I was like, wow, this is really cool. And I started calling all of these New York, they have these signs on the exterior of the buildings that have the contractor's name, the builder's name, the departments of buildings information. It's basically a license that allows you to know that the permit was approved for demo or construction. So what I used to do back then is I just used to call everybody and say, hey, do you have a broker? And because it was much less competitive, I, learned how to become the big fish in the big pond when nobody wanted to swim there.
That's super awesome. And just reaching out. We said earlier, right? Real estate is a contact sport. You have to be willing to make the contacts, and you weren't afraid to pick up the phone and call these people.
No.
What was your script? What was the script you used?
Oh God, I had a horrible script in the beginning. I would just call people and have no idea what I was doing. But the cool thing was that a lot of these developers who were just getting into the borough, we were very similarly aged, and they were also novice developers. So fortunately for me, I got to learn the process with somebody else who was on the flip side of that, but just in the development world. So I got to grow and learn with my clients.
That's awesome.
So I was very fortunate. The people I was reaching out to were not really big names at that point, because I knew that I needed to get some sales under my belt before I started to approach the big ones.
Well, you didn't think you were going to be a multi-million-dollar producer on day 2 of real estate?
Oh God. To tell you how disappointed I was in the first 3 years of the business, I made $11,000 in my first year. It was torture.
Wow.
And I had everybody telling me, oh, you should find something else. Are you sure that you want to do this? And I didn't listen to anybody. And then 5 years later, I created my client base. I finally got top 3 in Brooklyn, and then it just all went up from there. So
that
goes to show you persistence.
Persistence is key. 100%. People always give up right before they're about to get that breakthrough.
Yeah, you got to go out of your comfort zone. I like to do things that make me incredibly uncomfortable, because 1, then I'm not so uncomfortable the next time I have to do it. And 2, it just shows me I'm more capable than I gave myself credit for.
I love that so much. That's awesome. Well, let's switch to talk about your systems. What systems are you using that are producing results for you?
So I'm very data driven, and we've created all of our own systems. So I have this massive document in our OneDrive called our master doc, and it has every single property. It has every single list date, every single contract date, the splits, when we're closing. I have everything down to the T in there. I also have, lists for prospecting. We also do data shares, or we're trying to do data shares with other top producers so that we can have more accuracy in terms of comping projects, because, there's a ton of stuff that's available in Manhattan in terms of like contract signed reports. But since Brooklyn has, really only started to, I guess, be comparable in terms of price point and desire to live here with respect to Manhattan over the last, 10 years, that we don't have the same access to data that Manhattan agents do. So we are creating that for ourselves, which has been a long and grueling process, but basically recording every single piece of data so that I can make reference to it. I know how many deals I did on the sell side, on the sales side, what percentage off of the ask. So having all of that information readily available, knowing what the averages are in your area, like price per square foot, that's one area that I'm very, very good with. I could probably quote you price per square foot in any area in Brooklyn without looking at a piece of paper.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I always say data leaves clues, right? If we have enough data, we can make predictions. We can figure out things that we would have not normally been, and we can make really good decisions because we're basing our decisions on data. So
and one of the silliest things and the easiest things that people could do to be successful is at open houses. I so frequently don't, see agents writing down all the information or just asking simple questions like, hey, where are you coming from today? How long have you been in the market? Just trying to break the ice a little bit. And I take all those little nuggets, I write them down, and we create these awesome demographic reports based on the neighborhood. And I'm like, these are the types of people that are coming here. And these are the types of people that are coming to this neighborhood. So I could say, hey, these share similar qualities. Maybe these two neighborhoods would be interchangeable. And I can tell this client, why don't you check out this property? So it's really just thorough data collection and paying attention to the data. And then you can use that to your advantage in several different ways, whether it's getting a price reduction, whether it's being aggressive in the market and making your seller feel comfortable about it. It's incredible.
That's awesome. And I mean, everybody who's listening needs to make sure they write that down. They have to understand that they cannot make good decisions without data. You have to have data.
Absolutely.
100%. Okay. So what advice would you give yourself if it was 11 years ago and you were a rookie agent again? What advice, knowing what you know now, what would you go back and tell yourself?
I would tell myself two things. Get rid of your ego. Number one. And number two, work with people that trust and respect you. I think one of the most difficult lessons I learned was I thought that things had to be difficult, that you had to put in the work, that you had to get abused in order to be successful. And that's not true. It creates this really unhealthy relationship with your client base. And then it kind of becomes the norm. When I finally, grew out of that and grew a set and believed in myself and saw my value, I completely changed how I operate with my clients. And it's like, if you don't trust me, if you don't want to listen to the advice that I'm giving you, why did you hire me? This is absolutely pointless. So if you want to do something your way, or you don't like what I have to say, I respect that. And you can go work with someone else who will, carry out your narrative. And I've found that when I've been strong in my position and I've shown the data to back it up, most times I get what I want. And if I don't, I'm totally okay with letting it go. So be okay with letting bad business go. If it's not, it might not be for you anyway. So, and then the respect thing. Yeah. So
I love that. Know your worth and stand up for your worth.
Exactly.
Awesome.
It's probably, the confidence thing in this business, especially because you really need thick skin and in new development, because I don't know what the new development scene is out there, but there's no emotion in development. It's all business. You're not dealing with end users. You're dealing with people who are looking at the bottom line. So if you're messing with their bottom line or you're not transacting quick enough, then you're going to get an earful. And it's not like working with sellers. It's a completely different type of communication.
Totally different. They're not attached to the property in
very
any way,
cutthroat
shape, or form.
Exactly.
They're attached to the bottom line. They're not attached, like a seller who's like, oh, I raised all my kids in this house, I just can't sell it. That's one end of the spectrum. And you've got developers on the other end who are just like, just sell my product for the most amount of money in the fastest amount of time. That's what I need.
Exactly.
I love that.
Hey, real estate rock stars. This is Aaron Muchastegi, and I'm interrupting myself to bring you this commercial break from one of our sponsors. And I know you guys would much rather listen to the content and not the ads and not the sponsors, but this is one that I'm actually super, super excited with. So many of the realtors that we interview on the show, they talk about how much systems are important and how much follow-up is important. And I'm really, really excited about our new sponsor. There's somebody I've been looking at for a long time. And when they reached out to me, I said, yes, we have to be able to do this deal. So that sponsor is Follow Up Boss. On an interview last week with agent Mark McGuire, I asked him what his favorite software and what his favorite system was. And he said it was Follow Up Boss. And then he went on for another 3 or 4 minutes to talk about why Follow Up Boss was the best CRM he uses. So there's a lot of superstars out there that use Follow Up Boss. Some of the stats they gave me: Robert Slack, 1.5 billion team in Florida, #1 in the US. He uses Follow Up Boss to get a 400% ROI on its massive paid lead spend. Deborah Beagle, co-owner of the Ashton Group in Nashville, uses Follow Up Boss to guarantee that agents who join her team get 2 homes under contract in the first 90 days. That's a big guarantee for new agents. Barry Jenkins of Your Friends in Real Estate uses Follow Up Boss to automate everything so his team can produce $200 million on 25-hour work weeks. All right, so here's an offer. You guys are going to get this special for being Real Estate Rockstars listeners. Now, I've used Follow Up Boss. We've actually used it in our non-real estate businesses as well because it's so good at being able to set timers, set automatic texting and emailing, and what do you know? Best name ever, Follow Up. So here's what we got. For Real Estate Rockstars listeners, you get a 30-day free trial. That's normally 14 days. So in order to get this, you go followupboss.com/rockstars. So again, followupboss.com, just like it sounds, /rockstars. Go there, get your 30-day free trial and check it out. Especially if you aren't using any systems or any CRMs yet, this will be a great one for you to start with. All right, everybody, thanks again. Now back to our show.
All right. So talk to me. You mentioned earlier you had a new Punchless tool that you were using.
Oh, this thing is amazing. So before I discovered Punchless, which is an app that you can download in the App Store, I have an Apple phone. I think that this is also available for Android, but I really don't know. But it's called Punchless. And if you're in new development or even if you're in resales, everyone has to do a punch list before you close. So with new development, because the unit has to be delivered new with no material defects and nothing is in as-is condition, the punch lists are incredibly important to a smooth transaction. So the Punchless app has basically simplified it. So instead of just putting blue tape everywhere, which is great for the contractor, right, this allows you to take pictures, make notes, and create like this really beautiful PDF for punch lists. It is incredibly easy to navigate. And what used to take me an hour to put together a punch list, because I would have to take my notes, my pictures, create a Word document, and all that stuff that isn't fun, I can do it as I go. And it literally takes 10 minutes. And then you can forward it to the client and it's really professional. And it just saves a ton of time.
That's awesome. So anybody who's dealing with any sort of new construction should use that.
Absolutely. Punchless has saved my life. I've literally had all my agents adopt it. And anybody that I've told has said to me, thank you so much for introducing this to me. It has saved my life.
That's awesome. I love that. I know my daughter just bought a new house and I walked over there, I don't know, maybe a couple of days ago, and she's still got blue tape everywhere.
Yeah, the blue tape is sometimes up a little bit longer than we all want it to, but work in progress, right?
Yep, totally. So let me ask you a hard question. See how you like this one.
Sure.
What failure have you had that you look at today as a successful learning experience?
It's actually a really great question. And there's one experience that sticks out to me beyond all others. And this has to do with my ego. So back in the day, when I was an admin, I went to go work for a very big real estate agent. And my uncle was the manager of the office. Okay. And my uncle told me, do not take this job. You are going to get fired. It is literally the track record of this agent. Don't do it. And I was like, no way. I could do it. I'm smart. I'm not going to get fired. This is going to be amazing. So, 6-8 months into it, I get fired for something that wasn't my fault and legit not my fault. And I was devastated. And at the end of my exit interview, I asked, what could I have done differently so that I don't make these same mistakes in the future? And I was told, you just don't have what it takes to make it in the business. That one liner was the fire that in my soul that fueled me to want to be successful. I was like, oh, really? I don't have what it takes. I'm going to show you. And that's when I lost all my ego. And I was like, wow, okay, these things happen. I just got fired. I need to make an adjustment. And I went to Brooklyn. I learned everything I possibly could about co-ops, condos, rentals, you name it, so that I could be the absolute expert. And because when I went to Brooklyn in 2008, the market had just crashed. If I wasn't an expert, I was not only a new agent, but I was uneducated. So I needed to learn everything. So, being fired was probably the best thing that ever happened to me.
That's awesome.
It gave me so much motivation. So
probably in the back of your head all the time, you have someone saying you can't make it.
No, I'm like, thank you so much for firing me. Cause now I teeter back and forth between number 1 and number 2 team in Brooklyn, like every other year. So I guess I did have what it takes.
What an amazing story. That's awesome. Yeah. So tell me a little bit about what's your number 1 source of business? Where does that come from?
Oh God, you're probably going to hate this answer, but referrals. I've been in the industry for 15 years and I don't do much prospecting anymore, although I'm going to start doing it just, to keep up with everything. I have a very loyal group of developers who consistently build. So I do a number of projects with them on a yearly basis. And when that project is finished and there is success there, they often introduce me to someone else and then another person after I finish that project. So I've been very, very fortunate that people call me and offer me business based on, the book of business that I've already conducted.
That's amazing. But how long did it take you to have that start being your number 1 source?
5-6 years.
Yeah.
5-6 years, I'd say. And honestly, 5 years is probably the average time it takes somebody to build a book of business, unless you're coming from another industry and you have, access to buyers and people who consistently need to be shifting around. So like I find that anybody who was in fashion or somebody who was, modeling or in acting, they have a really good sphere for this industry. I was 23 years old. I did not know anybody. So it took me a good 5 years of, heels to the ground, lots of failures, lots of con calls, until I finally had someone give me.
How were you intentional about, and how are you to this day intentional about getting those referrals from people, getting a name?
So I'm very, very precise in how I launch projects. I make sure that there's all the marketing material, that everything is presented, that it's unique, that each development has a story, that there's specific copy. So the presentation, and also the staging is something that I do in-house, has been very well received by the public. So it's very easy to get calls from developers or to have somebody refer you when you launch a building and you sell it out in a week at full ask concessions. So my prior performance is imperative to my future business.
Okay. So yours is basically coming because of word of mouth, because of the amazing job you did for the clients. It's not so much you going back to past clients and saying, hey, who do you know that might also sell? They're just, your reputation is getting you the business.
They'll call me and be like, hey, I think that you should work with this person that you guys would gel. So it's the opposite. They're consistently saying, hey, you did a really good job. I want to do right by you. I want to introduce you to this person. But it's very rare that I ask my clients like, hey, can you introduce me to someone?
Okay. I like that. Mm-hmm. So tell me, if you could give one piece of advice to people in the real estate industry right now, what would that be?
That you have to have thick skin and not take things personally. Wear the buffer. we're supposed to be the calm. We are supposed to get rid of all the emotional aspect to when a buyer, a seller, or a developer communicates something to you and is very frustrated. You have to take that really mean message and change the narrative so that you can communicate it in a way that is non-adversarial. And what I find is that, sometimes it's really difficult to differentiate between anger or frustration being directed at you versus anger and frustration of the situation. So I could be on the phone with a client and I could be getting screamed at, but I'm not really getting screamed at. It's just the client is at their wit's end and I'm the person that they're venting to. So I would just say, try not to take things personally and try to understand the other side of the situation, because more often than not, if somebody's yelling, it doesn't really have to do with you.
Yeah. Be the calm, right?
Yeah. Be the calm.
We have agents that'll jump in and make the situation worse, or they can make it.
Don't yell back. Like I had a situation once where one of my clients called me up and he was so frustrated and he's like, we have to do this now. We have to do this. We have to do that. And I was like, can we just take a step back? Because I'm really unsure why you're speaking to me like this. I was like, we had a timeline and I'm following the timeline. So did something change that I need to expedite the timeline? Is there something happening behind the scenes that I don't know about? I was like, because I can help you if you tell me what's going on. And the client straight up apologized there to me on the spot. He was like, you're right. I shouldn't be taking this out on you. This is what's going on. I need your help. And I'm like, see, isn't that better? And
you got that by asking questions instead of jumping.
And I'm just like, hey, what's the matter? Like, what's going on? Talk to me. We're a team.
I love that. I love that. So tell me one thing you've learned in the last couple of years in this crazy market, the whole COVID thing, a lack of inventory. What have you learned in this market that we have been dealing with?
What have I learned? My own worth and what I'm willing to put up with for mental sanity. I think my work-life flow has changed for the better in terms of working smart. I figured out a much better process. I used to be a little bit of a perfectionist, and I think that used to come off in a micromanaging way, which is not necessarily healthy. So I've adopted new ways of working with my team, either, delegating responsibility or letting people just spearhead things without heavy monitoring. And since I've done that and really let people kind of carry the baton and make it their own, I've seen my team grow and thrive. And at the same time, I feel more valued, they feel more valued, and I actually get some time off from work, because there would be times where I wouldn't get any time off for 6 or 7 weeks. And now I'll be working on certain projects where I'm like, okay, you're on this week and I'll be on next week. So when I come back from the week of working other projects, I'm excited to come back to this project. So it's not only created a better work-life flow, but it's also created more enthusiasm because you're not in the same place every day doing the same thing.
I love that. So a lot of agents struggle with leverage. And I heard you mention you had to let things go and let people just do the things. How did you get over that hump where you're like, I need to be involved in everything and I need to make every decision too? I have people that can make decisions and they might not make the exact same decision I made, but whatever they made, it's good enough. How'd you get over that hump?
So I got really, really lucky. My sister had somebody working, actually Hugh, working for her. And she called me up one day and she was just like, you got to talk to this guy. He is so intelligent. I don't see any growth for him here. And he would thrive working for you. And to be honest with you, until I had the operations team that I have now with Hugh and Maria, it kind of opened my eyes to how different we could run the team. So, although I've had a lot of success over the course of the last 15 years, I feel like right now is the first time I've had a team that truly operates at the speed that I've wanted it to. And the people who are surrounding me now, as silly as this sounds, I don't even have to ask them to do anything. They know what I want before I know what I want. So I feel very fortunate and lucky that the group that I'm working with is just an incredible group and we all gel very well. So the people that you choose to surround yourself with, they give you the confidence to believe in them.
I love that. How have you found yourself changing as a leader as you've had to lead these people?
I found that when I give them more leeway and I let them do things with their process, but obviously with guidance, there's just so much more excitement. They feel so much better about themselves, because on a lot of big teams, the one thing that, or at least I experience or hear feedback with, is that they don't really have the opportunity to be themselves. Like, they're not allowed to fly. They're governed by like very strict rules and how to operate. So, I treasure the fact that each and every one of my team members brings something different to the table. So, together we can accomplish more than like the individual agents. So valuing their individuality, I think, has allowed them to shine far more than when I had all these rules in place. So it's just really cool to see them all come out of their shell.
That's awesome. And as a leader, it's like the best thing you can ever have is a bunch of people that are working with you that are meeting all their own personal goals and being able to contribute on their own personal level to this overall greater good.
And just for example, like, I love it. Like, I get random texts from my team members. Sometimes, like, I got one from one of my team members the other day that was just like, random text. I just wanted to let you know I love the work that we do together, and I really love being on this team. And like, people don't have to do that. Like, they don't have to placate me or send me silly messages. Like, this is genuine. And it's just nice that someone's taking the time out of their day to send me a little note to tell me how happy they are.
I love that so much. You actually mentioned in your onboarding form that your favorite podcast episode was building a value-based real estate company. And it sounds to me like what you're saying is that's where you've gone to, I want people that align with my values, that get 100% me, all going in the same direction.
Exactly. And you want to know what? I forgot who told me this or where I got it from, but it's definitely some motivational thing where they say, like, surround yourself with people that are just as smart or smarter than you. Because it's just going to allow you to challenge yourself and continue to grow. So I've gone and done that. And ever since I've done that, I've learned so many new skills, and I've learned how to use all this new technology and camera and film, things that I never would have ever thought of doing, because these are interests that my team members share. So I've learned a lot of new stuff.
Part of that was what you said, letting your ego go. You can't be like, I'm the best at all the things and no one can teach me how to do anything.
Exactly. I actually don't have a hierarchy on this team. I don't know if a lot of people are going to think I'm crazy when I say this, but in an effort to make everybody feel valued and to let them know that, yeah, sure, I'm the team lead, but I value all of them because my agents have been with me like anywhere between 5 and 13 years. So there's longevity there. I adjusted all the splits in 2022 that everybody is 50-50. So if I bring it in, you bring it in, it doesn't really matter. We're all the same. We all work together. And, it doesn't create any animosity or like resentment over splits, like where people feel like they're working too hard or they're not being compensated enough. So ever since I've done that, it's just been a world of a difference. And it's actually our best year yet. So not only have the agents sold far superior on the listings than they have other years, but they're doing so much more of their own business.
That's awesome. That's incredible. Yeah. So tell me, what does this year look like versus last year for you guys?
So if all goes right and the stock market doesn't crash and we don't have a recession, I should be on track to do somewhere 5 million or north of 5 million in commission.
That's an incredible
What
business.
Is that in sales volume? I forget.
It depends, but something, I don't have a immediate projection. 5 million in sales volume is going to be around 250 million.
About 250 million in sales volume and about 5 million in commission.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
That's
and
incredible.
Last year, I mean, we're probably doing at least $1.5 million more in commission than last year. And we did 183,000 or 89,000 in sales volume last year. So far superior to 2021.
What do you think your number one way to succeed is this year? What have you found the most beneficial for you guys to do? That's just like, yep, that's doing it. That's the secret sauce.
Besides the data, really being there for my agents and supporting my agents, whatever they need. We have a marketing team. So if they want custom collateral, if they want to do videos and make reels, they have access to all of that. So we'll create reels for them. We'll create collateral for them. For example, I have an agent on my team who, in her past life was into art curation and historical society. So we're going to be doing this reel about like, well, what is landmarks? And we're going to talk about all the different types of houses and the brownstones and differentiation. Because these are the things that she's passionate about. And because she's passionate about them and it's applicable to real estate, this is something that can help her gain attention for getting new listings.
Awesome.
So just supporting my agents and their passions and how it kind of intertwines into real estate, because honestly, I feel like everything intertwines with real estate. Anytime I go out anywhere, people are like, what do you do? I'm like, oh, I don't want to tell you. We're going to talk about it for hours.
It's just like meeting up with a doctor. And
they're like, oh, so how's the market? How's this? How's that? I'm like, it's fantastic.
Yeah. Everybody's one thing that everybody's interested in. I don't know anybody who's not interested in something about real estate.
Oh yeah. That's why I'm always like, well, what do you do? Tell me all about it.
Yep. And they say they're a doctor, and then you start telling them all the pains you have and all,
oh, can you look at this one weird thing on my back or something weird?
I've had this headache for like 3 days.
Why do people do that? It's so creepy.
All right. So you said your business was mostly list side. How have you been able to compete though on the buy side for multiple offers that have been going on? What have you guys done?
I'm the one who's in the driver's seat. Since I'm the listing agent, everyone brings me the offers, and I'm the one who's guaranteed the sale. So, buyers are great. I work with them on referrals, but it requires a lot of trust and respect. And, there's been a lot of times where I've elected to work with buyers and they ghost me or they buy something on their own or whatever. And even if I was doing a stellar job. So, being a listing agent has just been much more fruitful for me because we're a very transactional team. We do a lot of volume. And being a listing agent allows me to do a lot of volume because you have so many buyers that are coming into one property versus one buyer who has to look at lots of properties.
Okay. So as a listing agent that does a lot of listings, what do you like to see? If you've got agents that are bringing you offers, what gets them more likely to have you take a second look at their offer or a third look or really get their offer under contract with you?
So honestly, it's the broker or the buyer who listens to me. I am not going to pull your chain. I'm not going to give you incorrect advice. For the most part, when I'm working in a building, there's anywhere between 4 and 70 units for sale, often having similar lines or like kind price points. So if we have multiple people bidding, I'll give guidance. And if they don't listen to me, that's up to them. But for me, my goal is to sell all of the units at premium prices, not just have everybody bunch up and try to bid up on this one unit. Because while bidding wars are very nice, they can be very problematic sometimes, especially if the comps don't support it. And with the state of the market right now, we've seen offers that can be anywhere between like 10 and 30% over the asking price. So if you're a buyer and you're putting 10 to 20% down, your loan to value might not work out when you get to the appraisal. So if you have a low appraisal and I give you a mortgage contingency and you're bidding that high over the asking price, I'm just going to end up back on the market. So I'm going to look for high offers that have high liquidity. If you're putting 30 to 50% down and you want to make me an over asking price offer, I feel much more comfortable knowing that there's safety to bridge the gap of a low appraisal. Appraisal contingencies, meaning that, they want a mortgage contingency if they're not qualified for whatever reason. But if the property appraises for lower, they'll make up the difference. So that's always something that I like to see. Don't ask me for mansion tax over $1 million. It's your choice to buy the property over $1 million, not the sponsor. So please don't ask me for that. And don't be egregious in asking for closing costs like mortgage recording tax. That's also another fee that as a buyer, you're choosing to finance. So that's a fee that you should incur because of your selection. So if you make me offers that are reasonable, then that's probably the trajectory that I'm going to go down. But when you come and you're brokers who are aggressive, and like the other day I had someone come in and make me an offer like 17% off the asking price. And I've sold every unit in the building at the asking price. And I called up the broker and I'm like, do you really want me to submit this just so I could tell you don't have a counter?
Yeah.
I was like, because if this is your offer, I don't think this is the right building for you.
Yeah. Interesting.
So,
yeah. All right. So what's the number one way that you sell a house for more money or a development for more money? What do you guys do to make sure you're getting top dollar for all of your properties?
So I have a very unique advantage in that respect because a lot of my clients that I work with, I either sell the land to, and I help create the floor plans and the finishes based on the demographics because our team is very into micro trends and neighborhood to neighborhood and understanding that what might work in Williamsburg is not going to work in Park Slope. So you can't like apply the same metric to all different neighborhoods. So we do a lot of due diligence. If there's any historical factors about the house, then we try to incorporate those historical factors. Like if there's any ceiling medallions or crown moldings or fireplaces in old townhouses, we try to restore them. So because we're so hyper-focused on the demographic, it's very easy for us to craft floor plans and designs that are going to be in line with the market. And when I have the opportunity to get involved that early, it almost always turns into a quicker sale.
That's awesome. Listening to the people, knowing what the people want, watching the trends, taking the data.
Yeah. It's not what I want. I'm a crazy person. I have like a cheater carpet and all this other stuff in my house, but like, that's not how I'm designing new developments and projects. Right. I can be objective and say, hey, I would never, ever put that here, but I totally understand why this would work in this project.
Yep. You're appealing to the masses instead of like trying to.
I'm not building it for me. I'm not even building it for the developer. I tell my clients all the time, I'm like, are you going to live here? No.
They're like, but I want this. You're like, it's not.
I don't care what you like. This isn't for you. I'm like, do you want me to make you money? I'm like, or do you want me to make you something you like to look at?
That's funny. I love that. All right. One last question.
Sure.
Do you have any predictions for the market? What's the market going to do here? You've been through a slump. Like you're
asking me such a loaded question. So I'm going to make it very specific to my area. I do think interest rates are going to go up to 6%, maybe even creep past 6% because they're anywhere between 5.2 and 5.5 on certain 30-year fixed mortgages. If your interest rates are below, certain numbers. Your credit score is below certain numbers. But Brooklyn as a whole has been really healthy. We haven't seen any foreclosures in the last 2 years because of the pandemic. So, even with a healthy market, we're going to start seeing that again. You're going to start seeing foreclosures. The courts are going to open up. So I think there's going to be a lot of interesting things that happen because land prices have gone so high for new development and because costs of goods have gone so high, there's got to be a give. Like land prices have to go down for new development. Otherwise, it is not feasible for developers to build projects here. For example, I think it was like aluminum and wood are anywhere up between like 100 and 300%. Demo is 3 times more expensive than it used to be. So if you're paying so much for all of these things, plus there's delays with the departments of buildings and shipping issues, something has to give. So whether it's the interest rates come down at the end of this year, which I don't think the Fed's going to be ready to do because they just increased them. So, I do think there's going to be a lot of opportunity for foreclosures, distressed land, and hopefully better acquisition prices.
That's awesome. Well, I lied because I'm going to ask you one more question.
No problem. Ask away.
So you lived through the recession. What's one thing you learned from the recession that you're going to use if the market turns even slightly?
If you know what you're doing and you keep pushing forward and you use data and you learn from your mistakes, there will always be successful, good brokers and bad markets, because when there are bad markets, if people are going to list, they're going to go to the best. So those people will do well regardless.
Mic drop. Mic drop.
If I could drop my mic is on a tripod.
There's always good agents, even in bad markets. 100% true.
Actually, here's a better one. Bad markets make good brokers. Good markets make bad brokers.
It's true story.
Because it's so easy to sell. And then when it gets hard, everyone's like, what happened?
What do I have to do to? Yeah.
But if you make it through hell, like 2008 to 2010, and you can come out on the other end, you can get through anything.
You can get through anything.
Yes,
100%. Sure. That is so awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. You've been fantastic.
Of course, it was a pleasure.
If anybody's looking for land acquisition development in Brooklyn, they can give you a call.
Absolutely.
Contact with you, Jessica Peters. Awesome. And hopefully you'll continue to listen to the podcast and we will hear from you maybe again soon in the future.
Yeah, that would be lovely. Let's stay in touch.
All right. Awesome. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me. Have a good day. Bye.
Bye.
All right, real estate rock stars. This is Aaron Muchastegui jumping in again to thank you for listening to the show. Hopefully you guys loved listening to that one. And I want to make sure that you know about all of the extra resources that we have. And also, we need your help. They say podcasts are free. You get to listen to podcasts for free. But what is the cost of that podcast? I would say if I could beg you to pay anything for that podcast, I would say the cost of the podcast is going and giving a review. So whether you download it on Google or Apple or YouTube or anywhere else, please go give us a review. Say what you liked, what you didn't like. It helps us get better guests. The more reviews, the higher we get in the rankings. Right now, we are the biggest podcast out there for real estate agents, and we want to keep that spot because we know there's lots of podcasts out there. So go give us a review. Also, be sure to go to hibandigital.com. If you liked any of the resources that those real estate agents talked about, we've got a huge video vault of those resources for free. Every penny that comes on the podcast that we interview, they give us something that helps them get their deals or helps them work with their clients. And we put that in the toolbox in our vault for you. So go to hibandigital.com and you can get it. If you're looking for real estate education, go to rebusuniversity.com. We have all sorts of courses in there to help agents succeed in real estate, how to get the listing, how to negotiate deals, how to become an investor, all sorts of different stuff, rebusuniversity.com. And if you want to chat with me, go find me on Instagram. And if you come find me on Instagram, you can send me messages. Tell me what you want to hear. Tell me what you liked, what you didn't like. We try to put a bunch of content out there too. You can find me in 2 different places. It's at rerockstars.com for our Real Estate Rockstars page, or at aaronmuchastegui.com for my personal Instagram page, where I can chat with you about all sorts of different things. Thanks for listening. We'll see you again soon.